It was a commission that was beset with problems from the beginning, not only the obstruction in its creation, but underfunding that wasn't really effectively solved in a limited time period for political purposes. And even though they did a great deal of work, 2,000 interviews, collected documents, the report is essentially self-referential. The reason I say that is that almost 100 pages at the end of the report in tiny print have footnotes to interviews and documents and evidence, not a page of which, classified or unclassified, can be seen by the public. The National Security Archives recently did a Freedom of Information Act request for every single document listed in the footnotes from all the agencies involved, and every single request was denied. And denied in some cases on grounds that don't fit the legality. So basically you have a report where you're being asked to trust the investigators that what they saw in the evidence led them to their conclusions, and you don't need to verify it independently. But I don't think that's the way it should work in a democracy. They took some public testimony, but that testimony was marked by being primarily focused on the recommendations of the Commission and its policy, not on the events of 9/11. And the majority of that testimony on the events was taken at the end of the long discussion about policy. In other words, they were making the policy recommendations before they found out what happened on 9/11. And the actual author of the report is still unstated, but I think in recent articles in the New Republic by Ernest May, we get an inkling, and also the release of the book Blind Spot, part of which was commissioned to be written by the 9/11 Commission by Timothy Naftali, that Naftali is at least the intellectual author of the report, and its primary conclusion that this was an intelligence failure. And that's the focus of his book. Zelikow, the director, Ernst May, who also worked on the Commission, staff at the top level, and Naftali, who was commissioned to do that work, all three are part of the University of Virginia Miller Center on Public Affairs, a rather interesting institution that bears some scrutiny, and they have a long history together of scholarship at Yale and Harvard that interlinks with studies of U.S. intelligence and including contracted work with U.S. intelligence concerning covert operations. And I think that that's one of the main problems that exist when you create a national security state, is how do you investigate it without involving the people that are already part of that national security state. And this report reflects that in the choice that they made of the people that would be brought onto the staff.
And we've tried to write this report in a way that ordinary people who aren't experts can read and enjoy and find educational.
Who wrote it?
The staff drafted the report, and then the commissioners reviewed it repeatedly, line by line, and adding language that they preferred and editing language in other cases.
But in the end, though, I mean, not to take the attention off of the commissioners, but physically, how many different human beings wrote this report? Can you tell us?
Well, there's a staff of more than 80 people, and different people on the staff contributed different things to the report. We just prefer to think of it as a collective effort.
The reason I asked that is because we had a call this morning praising the prose in it, the copy itself, the writing, and whether or not in the end you had somebody who... Were you involved yourself? Are you a writer? Do you consider yourself a writer?
I have written things in the past. I have a few books. We did not hire an outside writer. All the writing was done by us. But I have some experience writing, and I hired a lot of staffers precisely because they knew how to write. Not only are there lawyers and former prosecutors on the staff, there are historians, including eminent scholars like Ernest May, one of America's premier diplomatic historians, was very helpful to us, and others. But what I found was that once everyone understood the way we were trying to present the material, a lot of staff were able to contribute material in a way that was readable and understandable and relatively jargon-free.